तुझसे प्यार किया, मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया। सजना सजना मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया, मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया। जीवन भर ये प्यार हमारा, जीवन भर ये प्यार हमारा बन के रहेगा अपना सहारा। टूट न पाए अब ये कसम, टूट न पाए अब ये कसम, प्यार न बदले अपना। सजना सजना मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया, मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया। तेरा प्यार है दुनिया में, तेरा प्यार है दुनिया में। तू ना मिला तो मर जाऊंगी, साथ रहे हम जन्म जन्म, साथ रहे हम जन्म जन्म, साथ ना छूटे अपना। सजना सजना मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया, 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 मैंने तुझसे प्यार किया।
A very pleasant good afternoon. A very pleasant good afternoon and welcome to the Ken Rampersaud Show in collaboration with the Narine Dat Show. I will have him on soon. He's trying to get on the show. So again, today is Thursday. It's a beautiful day outside. We're getting summer's approaching very soon. And while we are trying to get him on the show, I have to tell you that today's show is brought to you by the kind compliments of Shanta Flowers. If you want any of your flowering needs, you have any flower needs, contact Shanta Flowers at 718-326-3301. And she is located at 130-14 Liberty Avenue, right here in Little Guyana. Also, I want to say thank you very much to GMA Plumbing and Heating for all your needs, your plumbing needs. Don't forget, don't hesitate to call them at 917-864-2670. Again, GMA Plumbing. So today's show is brought to you by the kind compliments of Shanta Flowers and GMA Plumbing and Heating. Um, I got to tell you that there is so much going on in our community and around the world. There is so much stress, there is so much problems going on, and I decided, along with Dr. Narine Dat to come up with something to talk about in terms of how can we really heal in our community. And so, while he is actually, I'm talking so that I could, as soon as I get him on, we'll head right into business. We will not be long on the show today because there is somebody else who is going to come right after me at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in New York and around the Caribbean and Guyana and so on. So how you guys doing? How you coping? I'm hearing so many stories of people are stressing and been going through a hard time with the death of two young people, one in Guyana and one here in New York. They don't know really how to cope and what to do, what not to do. So it is affecting us in all over the world, especially when young people dies. As you guys know that children were supposed to, they're the one who supposed to bury their parents, not parents burying their children. So one could imagine how difficult it is to bury your own child. Huh? Got to be a tough thing. And if you don't have the necessary tools to help yourself to go through all of this, to go through the pain, the grief, the anger, the trauma, it's tough. It's a rough road to climb. But I always tell people that it always helps when you have good people around you to share your sorrows, to be with you when you're going through your grief. It's always good to have someone next to you. But then there's another problem when everybody left your side. Um, you will be alone dealing with all the heartbreaks and all that it takes in the struggle. But I want to tell people, you know, being mindful, do the things that you like to do would help. But I've heard so many people complain about the pain, the agony of losing a child. It's not an easy thing. So I see Dr. Narine that he just tuned in, and we will go right into business because we don't have a lot of time. We have about 45 minutes. So, Dr. Narine Dat, a very good evening to you. And again, I want to say thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Unfortunately, I don't know if you guys see my eyes. It's very different today. I just came from the eye doctor and they dilate my eyes, so I didn't know if I was going to be able to see see you guys what's going on. But nevertheless, we got to do this show. We need it in our community. So, Dr. Narine Dat, good evening again. How are you, my brother?
Good evening. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Wait, I am not hearing you.
Oh, I can hear you nice and clear. I
Go
can hear
ahead.
you nice and clear. Yeah, I can hear you nice and clear.
I can't hear you. Um, oh my God. Something. You could hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
But all right, let's go. We in business. So I was asking, how are you doing?
Yes, I've heard you nice and clear. I'm doing great, and thanks for asking.
So I wanted to change we want to change how we really do things today, and rather than talk about depression in detail, I have some little point of view some questions that I have for you that we could talk about. Discussing the misconception around mental illness, mental health. What can people do? What can we do, or you do, to encourage a conversation when it comes to mental health, mental illness. And when we talk about mental health, I know that you will explain that better. And when it comes to compassion and dealing with all of this in a judgmental way, to have open-ended conversation, what's your take in all of this?
So first of all, I think it is important for us to acknowledge. For some reason, I'm hearing like a lot of feedback. I want you to know that, but not to
Okay.
worry though. We have to acknowledge that mental health is real, right? And so this is not something, we should put at the back burner, so to speak, right? Having said that, as we mentioned previously, that at the end of the day, we are all responsible for our own mental health because none of us can feed off an empty bucket, right? So mental health come in different shape and form. Mental health comes, in simple ways in terms of, daily related stress. Those are normal things. Those are normal things, right?
Right.
But do know that if it get, if the mental health gets severe, it means that people, can get really, really depressed to a point where they no longer right see value in life, right? They don't see the point of carry on anymore because nothing to them, is meaningful, right? And that's obviously that's when people are in a very dark state, and all of this, right? That's where the depression piece comes in, right? So mental health itself, it is very broad. I'm glad we're talking about this now, actually, because coincidentally this month is mental health month, right? And so
Right. Right.
bringing the awareness is key. When people are let's say there are folks out there who are taking really good care of their mental health. They also have that extra skills and knowledge where they're recognizing the distress of other people, because if people don't have the knowledge, if they themselves are struggling with some sort of mental health challenges, they will not be able to recognize challenges that people have, meaning that the people in their circle, right? That's one of the reasons it is so important for us to stay on top of things in terms of, being mindful then, right, of our own mental health. Like that is key. Just like when people go for regular checkup, to the family physician, they go for like an annual checkup and things of that sort, because they may see certain things, or they might not, they probably have some sort of pain there. Let me put it that way. Mental health, I mean, it's we can't really, see it really, right? It's something we kind of experience,
Feel.
whether that be through exactly, whether that be through low self-esteem, whether that be we are always agitated, meaning that every little things becomes an issue for us and all of that. That's where we are really affected when it comes to the mental health piece. And as I was mentioning, mental health is so broad that we cannot get through this within 45
Right.
minutes,
Right. Right.
because there are different things that causes mental health, right? It could be simple as us not eating properly. That's an issue. It could be experiences that we have had, growing up as a child. It could be, it sounds simple, but it could be like things, even that is related to like financial, pieces as well. To all of that really can put a strain on your mental health without any question. A lot of professional people suffer a lot, and people don't know that, because most of the professional people, they have like, obligation to maintain certain reputation and to do certain things and all of that, but they do suffer a lot, when it comes to mental health. So everybody in some shape or form is affected by mental health. There's no question about
Absolutely. And we all do in the everyday life. And I think the only time when
it.
it's really bothers us is when we can't eat and sleep and so on. So, in your opinion, right,
Hmm.
what are some of the barriers
Hmm.
that you think is preventing us for having this conversation? And why is it so hard for people to don't want to have these kind of open conversation?
I mean, I can only speak based
Right.
on my own experience and a little bit of
Right.
research and so forth. I think that stigma still plays a key role in terms of people, in terms of the hesitation to kind of really having an open conversation, about mental health. And one thing I can tell you, a lot of people, they look shiny
Right.
from the outside. They will dress nicely. They will speak well, right? Because they have a good way to put that mask on, because they have to conjoin, with their life and their day-to-day functioning, right? But behind closed doors, it is a whole different ball game. Um, Obviously, here in North America, it's a little bit more
True.
acceptable. This is a real thing. People go for group therapy. People go for single session therapy. It is very well supported. The government, here, at least in Canada, I'm not sure what the states, they put aside billions of dollars to help people when it comes to mental health. They're now realizing, right? Because studies showing, they're realizing that this is a real thing, and it just cannot be, the economy, situation, the price of gas, it's the price of our mental health as well too has to play a key role as well
Thank
too.
you. You know, one of the things that I see a lot in my practice, and now when I say my practice and working, I
Mm-hmm.
see there's a lot of people with anxiety, depression, PTSD. Um, you know, in your practice, because I know you sit down and you have these conversations with people, what are some of the common mental health conditions that you see, and how can people really help themselves with all of this to cope on a everyday life?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of times I, based on what I've, based on my experience and, doing treatment and so forth, I find that a lot of, there's a lot of anxiety pieces. People come usually for anxiety, obviously depression pieces all too. Um, because what's happening, when it comes to the mental health piece, right? It usually start off with something simple. Like something just doesn't sit right with you, and if we don't pay attention to it, right, that's when it leads into this whole depression piece kind of thing. And this is a little bit different than when somebody's actually diagnosed with a particular, mental health, diagnosis, so to speak, right? So it's a little bit different, but I find that the depression becomes very
Right.
common now, and I think the reason for that too is because people, because of the stigma that we talked about earlier, people, things, and things are not fully right with people, but people try their best to deal with it on their own because we came from a culture where men, has to be macho, and we shouldn't be talking about all of this. We have to, work our way through it, all of these types of things. In terms of managing any sort of mental health challenges though, one recommendation I can give to people from a professional side of things is it is so important to stay connected with a professional if you're able to do that. There are lots of resources out there. These things are, it's not cheap, by the way, just so you know that, it's not cheap. Like when it comes to private practice, like people pay me like lots of money to come and see me. That's my
Mm.
private practice. If I offer free service on this side, that's something totally different. But there are lots of free services where the delivery of the service is the same, where there are professional people offering the services, but it is is covered by, let's say some sort of, government programs. Obviously, here in Canada will be a little bit different than what you have, in the States, right? And it comes back to the whole self-care piece, as well too, where the more people take care of themselves, and be conscious of that mental health piece, the easier it is for them to manage any, mental health challenges that they have. Because a lot of times when people have, extra stress and all of that, sometimes they end up not eating at all, or sometimes they're coping with these, whatever they're dealing with, they're coping with it by using drugs, using, liquor, rum, and it's become an addiction, and then that becomes a whole different mess. And it gets really, really messy, right? So staying connected. I mean, it's so important for people to engage, into something. I always recommend this. So let's say people, yes, people have busy lives and so forth, but engaging into something that you really enjoy, it's a really beautiful thing to really keep you engaged, keep the mind engaged. You really cannot just go to work, come home, and just kind of stuck there and do the same thing. And that in itself can be damaging for people's mental health. I'll tell you that for sure, right? And so engaging in activities, meaningful activities is key. That's for sure. And the social media thing is a whole different ballgame. The social media is creating lots of mental health challenges for a lot of people because people, you know, um, that's a whole different topic. But all of those things contribute to really bad mental
You
health
know, I'm
pieces.
glad you say that with Facebook and so on. Now, a couple of days ago, I was at the Dunkin' Donut store, and there was a lady on the phone. She was talking, and she was saying, like, she was talking to somebody else, and she's saying, "Oh my God, I am trying my very best to stay up, to keep my head up above ground." And I had a couple of people I that called me and said, that with the death of this young pandit guy, that
Hmm.
it's just so difficult for them to understand that he passed away, and it's so
Hmm.
difficult for them to understand that he had so many people he was surrounded by, and still he did not talk. Um, in a situation like this, how do we, as a country, as a community, deal with the stress? Because it's very stressful. Like, I can't wait for all these things to just die away. How can the common
Hmm.
man like me and our community deal with all of this?
Yes, so this is a very unique situation, because the individual was kind of missing in that sense. Nobody knew what was happening, and all of a sudden, the outcome was not what people were
Right,
hoping for, right? So that's hard. So obviously, people are in a shock, and there are different stages when it comes to loss, right? So
right,
people are in shock. Even though I live far away, I myself, I was
right,
hopeful, right? I was hopeful that there will be a positive outcome here. So I was in a little bit of a shock as well too. But at the end of the day, too, people have to remind themselves that there's certain things in life we cannot control. Certain things you and I cannot control at all, right? So we cannot control the fact that people passed away. Yes, it might take us a long time to accept certain things in life, and sometimes we might never accept certain things, right? We have to make sure that as much as this is difficult, we have to remind ourselves that you know death is a guaranteed thing. That's the
right,
only thing that's
right.
guaranteed in life, and end of the day, and I hope I'm not sounding blunt here. At the end of the day, we have to look on the positive side of things. Even though that young individual has been here for a short time, 17 years, by the looks of it, he has made a positive
Correct.
impact to the lives of many
Absolutely.
people, right? So I think that we have to try to look at it in a sense where we are looking at it. Let's say we're comparing, quantity over quality here, because we can have people come
Right.
into this world and they live up to 100 years, but they've not really made any sort of impact, in the community. They've not done any good thing for themselves, all of these types of things, right? So I think people have to kind of think along the line. But in terms of the family aspect of it, I think that people also have to give some space to the family members to make sure that they have the time they need to kind of grieve. I watched bits and pieces of the clips during the funeral, and certain things were made clear, in terms of what the families hoping for, in terms of from the people, meaning that certain things they wouldn't want for their son, right? That's those are the piece I've seen, and I think people have to kind of have to honor that. Having said that, though, earlier, I've seen people say things like it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a community to raise a child, and so forth. And even though the family in no shape or form have any sort of obligation to share any specific information to the public, so that's not an obligation they have per se, but ethically, it will be closer for the community as well too, if there's any information that can be shared where people can use that as a way to kind of prevent things from happening. I think that's going to be a helpful thing too, which wouldn't be an easy thing to do, but at the same time, ethically, it is the
All
right thing to
right.
do.
Talk about everyday stress, Narine. Life is not easy. Not for me. I don't know about you, but on an everyday basis, is it tough living when you work $50 and you have to get $60 to spend? How do we actually, and that where mindfulness come in. If we could talk a little bit about how do we handle all this stress? And yeah, how do we handle the stress, and what can we do?
Yes, so first of all, good question. We live in a different era right now. Life is not the same how it, and you would notice, many people will notice, life is not the same what it used to be, 20 years ago,
Right.
15 years ago, right? And so, simple things like job becomes an important thing, right? Because if you don't have, because society is set up in a way that you have to have a job, you get a bill, keep coming, all of these types of things, right? And I think, um, people have to know their needs, people have to understand their needs, people have to know of the things that are of importance to them and so forth. One of the sad thing though, and this is the reality, is that for some reason we live in a society where it's like a competition, we're doing here. Like, I want to be better than you, you want to be better than me. And we're kind of putting ourselves in this uncomfortable kind of situation. And I'll give you a perfect example. There's one student came from India. This is a perfect example. He came from India to study here, to came to Canada, has no idea as to how it works here. So he came, he rented one of the most expensive cars. I'm not a car guy, so I don't know all the details, but high end kind of car. So he was paying like eight $800 per month.
Wow.
Student fees. He couldn't afford all of these things, and then he get into this whole mess where the debt keep climbing up right into the thousands of dollars, and he did not know how to deal with it. Did not know how to manage, all the stress and all of that, and didn't know anything about resources and so forth. And he
Oh.
took his own life. And so that I share that example for a reason. So people have to be mindful of these things. You mentioned something about you get a $20 paycheck or $4 paycheck and you're spending $60. People have to be mindful of all of these things, because all of these things add up into this daily stress that people go through on a daily basis, for sure. Not an easy thing, and it's easy for us to say certain things. But mindfulness is so important to pay attention to. Um, and sometimes people have to pay attention to the challenges in their life as well too, right? So whatever's happening to people's life right now, whether that be good or bad, pay attention to that. Even if it's something bad, it is
Right.
telling you something, right? It's a wake up call. I'm very blessed, as we speak right now and so forth. But in my earlier days, I've been in a situation where I was laid off from jobs and so forth, and I had no idea as to what's going to happen next. I thought that the world is come to an end here. That I don't have a job anymore. This is not good. But looking back at my own journey, I'm realizing, oh my goodness, have I not got laid off from those jobs, I would have not become the
Right.
person I am today, right? Because it became an opportunity now. So yes, people might feel a little bit low. And even though your people are feeling really low right now and you're thinking, oh my goodness, why is it that all of this is happening to me right now? Keep in mind, one thing I can assure you, the feeling that you're having right now, it will not be like that for the rest of your
Absolutely.
life. It's just that you have to stay strong and make sure you kind of, hang in there is what I usually say. It's kind of like we're going through a
Right.
season, right? So, let's say when it comes to winter time, there will be stormy weather. There will be times when the weatherman will say, "Look, we are advising you not to even step out of the house." Right? A lot of things, like canceling of school. Those are things that we cannot control, but we know for sure that is gonna pass, right? We'll have all of this beautiful weather. So just with life, sometimes people might go through a divorce, go through a breakup, family issue, which is a big thing right now. Family really don't get along these days. All of that. You just have to kind of know that you're going through a season here, and things will fall in place, but you have to stay focused. Do not allow any of that to hold you back. Even if you have to move with pain, do it. Because the minute you sit and you lay back, you're really setting up yourself for failure.
Thank you
That's
very
for
much.
sure.
Bibi Zafrali, a very good evening to you. Usha Azimola, watching from Wisconsin. Anita Ish is watching from Canada. And Bibi said the right thing. Life is very challenging. Bibi husband died probably a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago. And it was hard for her. And I'm certainly sure that it's still hard for her. And her husband was a guest on my show. Also, I want to say that a couple of days ago, I learned that Alicia Sugrim, who was a very a guest on my show a few times, who shared her story of breast cancer, passed away in Guyana. And I really wish that God will find a resting place for her. She left three children, I believe three kids, two younger kids and an older son. So it has to be tough. Imagine those children growing up. They just have their father, but may the Lord bless her soul. Um, you know, where do we go with all this stress? How do we get support? And I would want to ask you a very personal question, um, sorry,
Mhm.
Dr. Narine Dat. Listen, you know that you were a pandit, a young pandit in Guyana. And I think that
Mhm.
we need to change this narrative where we can talk about certain things as a pandit. And we're not talking about any pandit. I'm just talking about in general.
Mhm.
In
Generally
these
speaking. Mhm.
religious organizations, how do we help our young people cope with their problems as pandits or as a big auntie or uncle in the
Mhm.
church in the religious organization? Um, do we have these where these young people could come and sit down and have a conversation without it go any further? What's your take? Because I know that you were in this.
Yeah. So for the folks then who are watching, listening, I'm a former pundit. I started off at the age of 14, so
Great.
I did wedding for people. I've did lots of ceremonies. I never charged a penny, by the way. I did it for the people in the community. And when I came here to Canada, it was my dream to why I wanted to become a pundit, right? Because I was 14 then, and right, and I did enjoy the journey of it, so to speak. I came here, I kind of gave it a shot, and when I was doing, the religious ceremony for people, well, they were giving me lots of presents and things of that sort, but I never take any present. I usually give it away right at the spot there. So my experience here in continue on was not good in the sense that the pundit saw me as a threat because I was really good at what I was doing and so forth. So I didn't get the
Right.
support to kind of continue on. Um, but so I take a different path and have no regrets. But I want to get back to what you've said. Keep in mind, when it comes to the temple, right? It's people like you and I running this temple. And despite the fact that and I'm not talking about any specific temple, I'm just speaking in general ways here, and I'm speaking based on experience as well. People, these temples and mandirs and whatnot, they are run by people like you and I, and you will be amazed to know that people, they seek that attention in terms of they want to be the head person to run a particular temple. They want to be, the center of attention and so on. These things, it does happen. There's maybe things have changed over the years and so forth, but the temples, most of them are not structured to have safe space where people can talk about things, right? Usually people go, they sing a bhajan, they put it up there, they like and share and so forth. When I remember my days as assistant pandit to the very educated Pandit Dev Chetram. I remember when I was doing like service in the temple as a young individual, it was extremely challenging for me because I was young, I was still learning. There was like so much to learn, right? But there was no support really. People saw me as a challenge. They're thinking, "Oh my goodness, he's 14," and because I
Right,
was
right,
getting a
right.
lot of attention. At 14, people they were arching me, they were bowing on my feet, they were washing my feet, all of these things. And so people don't like that. And so for me, it was a challenge. I remember while I was doing the service in the temple, there were people say to me while in the temple, this is not something, people say behind my back. People say to me, look, you cannot buy the seat of a Brahmin. And that's a different discussion there. Basically, what they're saying there is that it has to be specific kind of people, chosen people to do these kinds of things, not knowing who I was, so to speak, right? Things of that nature. I had situation where people were at that time riding bicycles, going house to house,
Oh wow.
discouraging. people from
Wow.
supporting me, kind of thing, right? And these are adults who are doing this. So that, think how difficult that was on us
Right,
as
right,
an
right.
individual, me, right? Like, because I didn't understand what's going on. I go because you're 14, like nobody will listen to you per se. So there was no kind of support, at least for me, that way. So it is extremely difficult. Because especially those times the support, wasn't there, right? In that kind of way. And I mean, it becomes challenging for young people here too, because, for example, even here in Canada, there was one girl who didn't want to go to the temple, and the reason why she didn't want to go to the temple was because she didn't had, the proper
Oh, wow.
color of the Indian clothing, and she felt as if she go there she wouldn't fit in. And we're not talking about people here, but these things are normal things that people go, and sometimes it becomes, and you will have to forgive me here, Ken, but
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
become like a fashion show as well too,
Competitive.
and then like, yeah, right, for sure. And that's one of the reason when I go to the temple, if people invite me as a guest or they have a function and they invite me to go, I wear plain clothing. Like when I have my own personal show, like I hammer it
Oh,
well, that's different. People pay to come see us. But when he goes to the temple, I wear no jewelry. I wear absolutely nothing because I'm going there for a specific purpose. But and so forth. But extremely difficult, extremely hard, and you really have to have good mentorship. For these young people. And I mean, I'm not condemning anybody in any shape or form, but when it comes to this specific situation here, the person who's claiming to be the mentor for that individual, I see that to be a little bit troublesome there, because on his personal page, he was blaming that individual when that person was missing. So I'm thinking, if he's blaming a teenager for the disappearance, how can he be a good mentor for that individual? For me, that's a red flag there. So assuming I was the one, and this is not my job, but I'm just saying, assuming I was the one getting hired on to kind of investigate this case, and I think it should be investigated. I will be checking into the manders, for example. I will be interviewing all the mander people, all the mentor for that individual, all of those people. That's where I will be starting, kind of thing. And I hope that I don't receive any sort of email from anybody or any kind of negative thing. But we're just generally talking, and I'm speaking from experience here as well too, right? That it is extremely hard for young people. So when people have a say, it's hard to really bring it forward. When I was 14, when I founded my own nonprofit organization in Guyana, it was a very difficult thing to do, because at 14 years old, doesn't make
right,
sense to
right.
people. You know what I mean? Like, what can you do? Like, as a teenager, that's how people view it, right? And even now, one of the most challenging thing for these young pundits here in general is is getting support, because they're young and people don't really see them to have the full knowledge, because a lot of people are bent a certain
Thank you
way
very
and all of
much,
that.
Auntie Iris. A very good evening to you, and happy early birthday to you. I know your birthday is sometime next week. I pray that God will bless you, continue to bless you with long life. Jasmine Madre, a very good afternoon to you. Um, now, um, one question I have for you, another question. I know that you'll be surprised at this one. And despite sometimes people could be wanted to be a pundit at age, and we're not talking about anybody here. I'm talking about in general.
Yeah, yeah, generally
Someone
speaking.
could be want to be a pundit at age 8, 9, and 10, but when they become 19 and 16 and 15, they can decide to say, listen, I don't want to be a pundit no more. That changed the whole narratives of things. What's your take on that? Um, and here it is,
Yeah, yeah.
everybody in the mandir or the church or wherever, they feel like, listen, man, you do this thing so long, continue, but you don't want to continue. How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
With the pressure?
Yeah, for sure. And I can answer that. And so, as I was mentioning earlier, in my early years, I grew up in a temple. And so that was the thing. But as I get older, I learned very quickly that the true church is one's own heart, right? And so I get out of it. And I still believe in Hinduism and Sanatan Dharma, and I believe in miracles, and I'm very connected that way, kind of thing, right? Um, Having said that, though, I want to give you a perfect example. My cousin, for example, and hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing this. My cousin, blood cousin, he was like a
Right,
Haribo
I know
type
that.
of
Yeah.
individual where right, exactly, and so he was a vegetarian and all of this type of thing, and he was, out and about and so dedicated. And he's chanting, all of these types of things in his earlier days. I'm talking about as a teenager and so forth, and that's what he wanted to do. But as he got older, as you mentioned, he did
Right,
not
right.
want to do that anymore. So right, and so he get out of it because and then he ended up going back home, and then he find a girl, he got married, he have kids, and so forth. I always tease him about it and say, "Hey, what happened to this Haribo thing? You used to do all of this, right?" But you're right, and so certain times in life, people might choose to do something different, and that is okay. That is totally fine because people will have different viewpoint at different times as well too. Because you want to be in a space where you feel comfortable, happy, and excited, and so forth. One of the temples here where I live, during in a church setting, people were having arguments, and they took one guy and they
Oh,
locked
wow.
him in the trunk. I'm just giving
Yes.
this is real stuff I'm talking about, right? And so when you think about it, like how safe are these places? We're not condemning anything, but is it actually safe, right? Is it, can you go to the temple and not being judged, right? Right. So all of these things we have to question ourselves. So let's say if I go to a different temple, will I be treated in a way, in a welcoming way? Will they see me as a threat? Right. These are all reality. These are all kind of thing. But to answer your question, I think it's important for people to have those kinds of choices, if right, and even if at an older age, if you want to become a pundit now, Ken, that's okay. I
Right,
know
right,
you're not
right,
a
right.
Hindu, but I'm gonna say it's okay. So it's never too
Absolutely.
late to do, right?
True.
You never, and that goes for
Yes.
any profession too, right? Because these things takes, it's a lot of
Yes.
commitment as well too, right? Because I have to tell you, and I want I mean, when I visited Guyana and so forth, I remember I went to a few pundits and so forth because I mean I kind of grew up in temples and I used to travel around. And this pundit invited me at his house, and at that I'm a vegetarian now, but at that time I was not a vegetarian. He ordered the
Oh,
best
wow.
Chinese chicken fried rice. Him and I eat the Chinese fries together. And the next day, he was prepared to do like a religious service for somebody and so forth. And so we have to be
Right.
mindful of all of these things, right? And so it takes a lot of commitment, right? I know somebody, a pundit actually, where he's calling himself a vegetarian, right, and so forth. And then in the nighttime, he gets up and he cooks meat and eat and so forth. So we have to be mindful of these things. If you are not able to do it and commit to everything that's involved in it, then I think it's important to step out. If you're able to do it,
Excuse me.
and if it's your desire to do it, I think that's awesome because it takes special commitment, and I think it's a blessing actually if you're able to do it and get the support you need. But me at this stage in my life, like I said to you, like I see things very differently now. For me personally, this is just me. I see God in everybody. I became a vegetarian because of a
Agree.
homeless man on the street, right? So I see things very very different. Yes, and I met a homeless man. He asked me for $1. I told him no, but let's go and have like lunch together. He told me no, that he's a vegetarian. I came home. I said to my wife, "Hey, I want to
Wow.
be a vegetarian." And my wife thinks that I'm crazy because she knows I love my KFC, my Toonie Tuesdays, and my KFC and so forth. And then I realized that, hey, you know what? You never know what we can learn from who, right? So never underestimate anybody. And I personally believe that if God is all powerful, He can come to us in different shape and come in disguise as well too. So it's not all the glitters and fanciness and all of that, right? Yeah. So, anyways, that's my little story here. But people should have the choice to do it or not do it, and they should be
You know,
supported either way.
as we're talking about mental health, as this is Mental Health Month, you know, one of the first
Mm-hmm.
place I think that teens or adult could really talk about mental health is with their, and we're going to keep it positive and um, no,
Oh,
if you
of
know what I
course, of
mean,
course,
for
absolutely.
our viewers,
Yeah,
we
yes, I
should
know.
be able to go and speak to our religious leaders in the church, the mandir, the temple, the mosque, wherever it is. I think you would understand that's probably, if we have problems, if we have stress, we should be able to go to our churches and talk to our priest. What's your take on that?
Absolutely. And so if, and that's one of the things we were saying earlier. So let's say people are in it for the right reason, where it should always be a safe space
Right.
where I can come to you. If you're the priest, I can come to you and say, look, this season in my life, it's very rocky for me right now. And they should be supported and not being judged.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. And, but in order for that to happen though, that individual, the priest or whoever that person is, they themselves have to be in the proper, state of mind. Because if they themselves are not taking care of
Sure.
themselves, properly that way, they wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. They will see it from different lens. Keep in mind too, Ken, that the younger generation and the older generation as well too is very different. They see things from two different lenses as well too. Right?
Right. And I have to say, thank you to you too, because, in life sometimes, even for me, when things could get tough, I would always reach out to Dr. Narine Dat to just get his opinion or something, or to get his support in something. So having someone that you could talk to, it's really an important thing. And I want to tell people too that if you're feeling depressed, you're feeling suicidal, if you're feeling depressed, you could always go to your doctor. Go to your doctor to talk to them. They could put you on medication. They could do talk therapy to help you. But if someone is suicidal, I would recommend the best thing to do is try and call EMS, 911, get the police involved in things. So I don't know if there's anything. And I know that each state have numbers that you can reach out and call so that you could get help. How do you guys deal with emergency mental health issues in Canada?
Oh, no, so we have lots of supports here. There's no question about that. So do we have like 1-800 number, and whatnot, so people can have like 24-hour service. If they so choose, let's say they don't want people to know who they are, they can still be served without,
Right, right.
being without
That's a
any
good
sort of
thing.
worries. Yeah, definitely. So they can call, like, no, they don't know who's who, so to speak, and they can get a help. But you brought up something very powerful earlier. It is so important to stay connected with somebody who you can trust. For example, I have extremely amazing co-workers, and we will call each other at the end of the day, most of the time, most of every day, something 3-4 times per day, and we just vent.
Wow.
Right? We just vent because I never thought that I will be in this position though, but I embrace what comes my way. And
Right,
so
right.
I never wanted to work in mental health at all. It was never my thing, as we talk about. And I'm working in mental health. I'm just kind of, that's what I'm doing right now, among many other things, obviously. But and it is one of the toughest things, I can tell you that right now, because we have people who are in a situation where they're ready to go and kill somebody right now, for example. Right? We're dealing those kinds of clients, all of these things. And at the end of the day, we are human beings as well too, right? And so
Absolutely.
and I want to be transparent with people, and the fact that this is mental health month, and I want people to know that people like myself, yourself, like we feel just like everybody else, and we go through all of these emotions as well too. And yesterday was not one of the best days per se. And so I called my coworker on my way home, right? And I said to her, "Look, thank you for listening to me for 17 minutes. That
Wow.
this is my turn now."
Yes.
Because she usually call me usually for time of the day just to kind of vent out and get things out of the way, and I offer support. So when I call her, it was after hours, by the way, and those are the blessings I count. I have people in my circle that I can call right away as I need them, and I call, and they pick up right away, and I just was speaking for 17 minutes. They didn't say one word, and I
Oh,
recognize that. Oh my goodness, like
yes.
you are doing such a good job here, and they laugh. They said, "All right, don't you worry. Like this is why we are here." So I want to remind people what you have said here. It's so crucial. Like you have to have somebody who you trust, somebody who wouldn't use whatever you share with them against you. You have to be mindful of that too, because as we will see on social media, people, will say, well, you used to call me, when you need, we have to be mindful of that, right? But so important, very crucial, very good for mental health. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And it is important to like I know my wife, Gita, she have her aunt in Guyana that she can call, and her cousins that she could call and talk to them about things. And an important thing you said to that I want to add. I know we have like 4 minutes more to go.
Mhm.
An important thing you said just now is that when someone calls you, they're not really calling for you to take over the conversation. They're calling you for you to listen to them what they have to say. And
Yeah.
it's a good time to just sit back, listen what the
Mhm.
person have to say, and then if you have anything constructive to say,
Mhm.
the best thing that I learned, if you don't know what to say, stay quiet. We got about 3 minutes more to go. Give me your closing remarks, Dr. Sukram. And like again, I always say, but go ahead, talk, and then I'll close.
For sure, for sure. So first of all, I want to thank you for making the effort to acknowledge that this is, mental health month. It is so crucial, and I think as we continue to have these kinds of conversation, like people will kind of get it. I also want to apologize ahead of time, just in case if I may have said something that doesn't sit right with people, because that's not what this show is all about here. We are just giving examples, and certain things can trigger certain people. So I want to apologize, just in case, kind of thing, just to save yourself some time, so you don't have to reach out to me and so forth. Um, the fact that we're celebrating Mental Health Month, I would encourage you to kind of do some self-reflection, right? Do some self-reflection and ask yourself, how are things going for you? Like, are you happy with how things are going? Are you happy with your relationship? Are you happy with your finances? Are you happy with how things are going at your job? Are you happy with how people are treating you? Right? All of these kinds of things. And be okay to say no as well. To one of the policies I made in the workplace, I don't think the employees will like it, but I've said to them that you only reach out to me um, if there is an emergency, because I have a different role. So yes, I may have an open policy that you can come to me as well too, like anytime, but I have to be mindful of my own mental health as well too, because
Right, right.
if people are coming to me to say, look, they're having a bad day and they're not feeling their best self, I support it 100%. I don't have an issue with that. But if people are coming to keep, complaining and so forth, because I understand the
True.
difference, it's
Yes,
not good for my mental health at all, right? And so
absolutely.
I definitely, so I usually be mindful of that. And honestly, Ken, when we finish here, I know we have to go. When I finish here, I'm gonna go for my independent walk and just embrace that on my own, because that's a me time for Narine. But then when I come back, then I go with the family. I have a 1 year old, I have a 5 year old, we have the wife, and if the teenager want to go with us, well, we'll do it together that way. But take care of
Right, right,
you.
right.
Always put yourself first. I always put myself first, and I have to tell you, works well, because I'm able to do the things I want to do. So thank you, Ken. Please take the opportunity to share the page. Thank you so much. This is great.
And Dr. Narine, that I want to tell you that sometime I asked you a day before that we could plan a show. I want to tell you thank you very much for your commitment, for making this world a better place, for helping each other, helping people that they could live their best life. So just to tell you, I'm serious. Thank you very much. To all of you who are listening, I want to say thank you very much for always tuning in. My sister, my friends, my family, thanks to all of you. And please share this page. That
Yeah.
and want to tell you that both Narine Dat and myself, our role here today and always is to try to educate you, to teach you a little bit of how you could really manage and to help you live your best life. We are not here to we don't really sugarcoat things sometimes, but we want you to know that we are honest and we want to share that with you. So again, we want to say thanks to all of you. Share this page to your friends and
Mhm.
your family. Until then, have a great evening and sleep well. Goodbye. Thank you again, Dr. Narine Dat.
Bye-bye.